Hello and welcome into Issues on the Point. I'm Darren Zaslow. Every Sunday morning, we speak with local leaders about issues that matter here in Pittsburgh. Our topics range from business to politics to healthcare and everywhere in between. We also highlight people and organizations giving back to the community. Last month, North Allegheny freshman Arshia Zaidi earned a prestigious national honor for community service, the President's Volunteer Service Award. Arshia is here with us, and throughout the show, she'll be joined by various members of the nonprofit organization she volunteers for, North Hills Community Outreach. To start us off, we welcome in Executive Director Tom Baker. Arshia and Tom, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks, Darren. We're glad to be here.
We're super excited. Arshia, we will start with you. You are the star of the show, of course. You recently earned the President's Volunteer Service Award for completing over 100 community service hours over the past year, which is incredible, and congratulations.
Thank you.
What does this honor mean to you?
It's honestly, it just feels amazing to be recognized for the volunteering I've done. It also really motivates me to continue to volunteer more in the future.
A little bit about this award, Tom. It was created by George W. Bush back in 2003 to honor volunteers of all ages throughout the country. It's absolutely wonderful. Now, Arshia is the first person ever from North Hills Community Outreach to earn this honor. So what does this mean to NHCO?
Yeah, and Darren, this is our 35th year of North Hills Community Outreach. We serve 40 zip codes, 50 communities, and we're a staff of 28, but we couldn't do what we do as an organization without Arshia and without 1,000+ volunteers every year, who for many of them, NHCO really becomes a second home. And I know for volunteers of all ages, when we see young people making such an impact and making such a difference, this is a beautiful story of a young leader, a family effort as well, too, that has really made a big difference in our organization. And we're so grateful to have the Zaidi family involved with us.
Absolutely. This was a whole process. This wasn't something that just happened overnight. We'll talk about just the process of this, Arshia. You're the first person from NHCO not only to win it, but to inquire about this honor. So what was the process like? How did you hear about the President's Volunteer Service Award?
So I actually know someone from school who has gotten it before. So I really started to think about it because as a high schooler, I can lose interest in things sometimes, and it really helps to have some goal to work towards. So the President's Volunteer Service Award really helped set a goal for me to reach, which in this case was 100 hours, and helped keep me motivated to continue to help out.
Tom, I imagine how proud you are of this. I mean, this is an unbelievable honor. Right. I can tell you just how emotional and what this means for you. What were your emotions whenever you found out that she won this award?
I was impressed how official the award is, actually. When we had the presentation, we had a little ceremony with the Zaidi family before our Young Community Leaders board meeting. We had cake. It was just a wonderful celebration. The Post-Gazette article then came out a few weeks later, and I will say young leaders have been inquiring with NHCO about how they can be the next Arshia since the story broke within the newspaper. So out a few weeks later, and I will say young leaders have been inquiring with NHCO about how they can be the next Arshia since the story broke within the newspaper. So we're very proud of her. And again, as an organization providing 20 programs and services here in the community throughout all of northern Allegheny County, we couldn't do it without our volunteers.
You know, as I remember from my high school days, man, it is a busy time being a high school student, without a doubt. You're 14 years old, right? And I told you, I wish I was doing half the amount of stuff you were doing at the age of 14. Taking a look at just some of the other things that you do, you're part of the North Allegheny Speech and Debate Club. You also row. You're a student, right? There's a lot of other pieces that are involved in your life. How did you balance these hundreds of community service hours with just being a high school student?
Well, I would definitely say that volunteering for me started to turn into a passion. I really enjoyed all the work I did, so it never felt like something I had to make time for. It felt like it became part of my routine.
And Arshia is part of a wonderful school district, too. North Allegheny is an incredible partner and supporter of North Hills Community Outreach. There's a program called Jump for the Hills. North Allegheny is actually our founding partner on that. So students from Arshia's school district raise over $50,000 each year through Jump for the Hills, which is really remarkable. And that's elementary school level students. So North Allegheny was actually our People Helping People award winner last year with Dean Baraniak, Dr. Freeze, who actually was my high school classmate, their superintendent. So we're very proud of Arshia and the school district as a whole for making such a positive impact in our organization.
It's fantastic. You know, Tom, you mentioned earlier that people want to be the next Arshia, right? So she's already leaving a legacy here and influencing others so positively just at the age of 14. What do you think that this will do for NHCO, for perhaps volunteers of the future or other future volunteers who are 14 in high school that want to follow in her footsteps?
Well, we do a really nice job as an organization meeting potential volunteers where they're at, finding good ways for them to be active. Arshia wasn't just involved in one way in North Hills Community Outreach. She was probably involved in 4 or 5 or 6 of the things that we do as an organization. So Harriet Claddy and Maddie Scheinfeld, our team was really able to keep her busy, to get her involved in a wide array of responsibilities and roles. I remember our North Boroughs 5K, which will be coming up this summer on August 13th. I got there, I think, at 7, and you and your dad were already out there, and it was like 6:30 in the morning when you arrived. So there's this whole wide array of ways that people can make a difference, and Arshia is a shining example of that. And I really do think, Darren, that other young leaders and families seeing the difference that she's made at such a young age will inspire and activate them to do good for others here. We're all about people helping people, and this family story is a beautiful example of that.
I want to know exactly what the ripple effect of this has been from you, Arshia. Have people either contacted you, congratulated you? Have people said, hey, I want to win this award too? What have you sort of seen effect-wise?
I actually saw the day after the story came out at school, my teachers would stop me in the hallway and be like, wow, I heard you won this. Good job. Congratulations. Actually, even I have an older sister. Her teacher stopped her and told her to congratulate me too. So it was, I never would have imagined it. It was amazing.
Tom, you said the same thing, that people have been calling, correct, about this award. And that is an example right there of the ripple effect, that people want to do this.
Yeah, and I will say, Darren, just in general, you having us on the show is a wonderful opportunity for your viewers to learn more about North Hills Community Outreach. We have been around for 35 years. We do cover 40 zip codes and 50 communities. I think sometimes people don't realize the wide span of programming that we do, and also the wide span of communities and neighborhoods where our team is really making an incredible impact. Again, it's a staff of 28, but if it wasn't for those 1,000+ volunteers that give tens of thousands of hours per year, we couldn't do what we do as an organization.
You mentioned it's a team effort, 100%. Arshia, how did you find out? Did they call you? Did they email you? What was the process of that like, I guess?
So I had actually heard of NHCO prior to this by some of my friends who volunteered there before, but I didn't actually know that at my age I could volunteer there. I really wanted to volunteer somewhere. I wasn't sure where. I reached out to a few places, but most of them said that with my age, I couldn't volunteer there. Then I remembered North Hills Community Outreach. I reached out to them, and they said that it didn't even matter that I was 13 at the time, actually, and they would love to have me.
It's fantastic. Tom, can't thank you enough for being here, for taking the time to chat with us. We really appreciate it. Arshia, we are just getting started with you. Coming up, we're going to learn about Arshia's motivation and inspiration behind giving back. Why did she want to get involved with North Hills Community Outreach in the first place? We'll answer those questions next, right here on Issues on the Point. We just learned about the President's Volunteer Service Award that Arshia just received last month. Now we're going to hear what inspired her to achieve this honor and give back to the community. Thanks again to both of you for being here. We really appreciate it. Arshia, let's just jump right into it. I know it's a wide question, but what motivated you, inspired you to participate in community service?
So growing up, I always looked for ways to give back. My parents immigrated here from India, so growing up, I really always understood how blessed I was to have everything I do. So especially last summer with the whole pandemic, I had a lot of time, and I figured what better way to use it than to volunteer.
What's so special about this too, Arshia? I know that Harriet means so much to you, and that you credit a lot of your success and a part of this honor, I know, to her. So Harriet, what are your first memories of Arshia when she first joined NHCO?
She was very enthusiastic and wanted to volunteer for everything. And because she was under the age of 16, we like those youth volunteers to volunteer with a parent or a guardian. So she volunteered with one of her parents, whether it was her mother or her father, and sometimes with the whole family. And she started out at the garden, and we found other ways that she could volunteer with them. They did highway cleanup. We adopted Ingomar Road in North Park, and they cleaned up the litter along Ingomar Road a couple times, and that was the whole family. And But most of the time when she would volunteer, it was with her dad. They were at the McCandless Crossing, at our informational table. They rang bells for our kettle campaign during the holidays, and those are all really important things that they did together. And I admire the fact that this is such a supportive family, and they were all on board with helping her. But those experiences that she volunteered with her dad will be cherished in her memories forever.
The saying is, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, and that is certainly the truth. Arshia, what made you want to participate in NHCO?
So my school, North Allegheny, has always been really involved with North Hills community outreach. So as I grew up through elementary school, middle school, I always saw the impact that NHCO had on my community. So I knew if I were to volunteer, I would definitely be with NHCO.
How has that also inspired you to give back? Because I know you're around a lot of like-minded people, which certainly helps. Of course, your family, but people you volunteer with. How did that inspire you?
Some of the people I met were absolutely incredible. Like, I know I'm here on the show, but some of them volunteered every single day at the garden, didn't miss a single minute, and a lot of them also taught me a lot of things I know now. And honestly, they're just people I will remember forever.
Absolutely. Going back to just the first start of this, whenever you joined NHC, I know you emailed Harriet and you guys helped set everything up. Harriet, what are your first memories with Arshia, and how much have you seen her grow through your experience?
Well, she was very, in addition to being enthusiastic, she was also very reliable, determined, dedicated. All of those things, and willing to, whenever she had the time. Sometimes they weren't available, but most of the time they were. And but she was able to see just how generous our community is, firsthand, by hearing people thanking them when they were picking up litter along Ingomar Road, or when they were dropping dollars into the kettle for the kettle campaign. They would thank them for volunteering. Sometimes they would even go inside and buy her a cup of cocoa. So she was able to see the generosity of the community, and also experience how our services help people in need. There's no stereotypical face of poverty. It could be your next door neighbor. Anything can happen that might put someone into a position where they have to come to NHCO for help. And it's so important for people like Arshia to volunteer for our agency, because no matter whether they're doing data entry or stocking the shelves of the pantry or ringing bells for the kettle campaign, it's all helping to help our neighbors.
Absolutely. Arshia, taking a look at other things that you're interested in, we mentioned the clubs that you participate in, NA, the rowing that you do as well, which is absolutely amazing, but looking at your future path, you want to be a doctor, you want to get into biology and so forth. Has that career vision also made an impact on you wanting to participate in community service?
Absolutely. So I always knew that whatever I did, I would want to give back in the future, and volunteering through this whole experience, it's really like cemented what I knew before. I know for sure now that if I do end up going into medicine or not, whatever I do, it will definitely include helping others.
You're off to a great start, absolutely. Lastly, Harriet, just what do you want people to take away from Arshia's story, from her inspiration? I know that she's already inspiring others pretty much as we speak.
I just want them to know that whether they volunteer one day a year, whether they volunteer one day a week, one day a month, it's all helpful for us to deliver our services. And it doesn't matter how much or how little they can give, it's all going to help.
Anything that you could do, exactly what you're saying, can make an impact, whether it's 100 hours over the past year or 6 months, which I know that you've done, or 1 hour. It all makes a difference, and that's what's so wonderful about what you all do. Harriet, thank you so much for joining us. Arshia, you're going to stick around once again. When we come back, we'll dive into Arshia's community service projects. I can tell you right now, they are quite impressive, and you won't want to miss it. That's coming up right after this. Here on 20 to the Point, I'm Darren Zaslow. We're joined by President's Volunteer Service Award winner Arshia Zaidi and North Hills Community Outreach Garden Coordinator Maddie Scheinfeld. Thanks again to both of you for being here. We really appreciate it. We learned about the President's Volunteer Service Award, the application process, what the award means to you, your inspiration behind giving back to community service, Arshia. Now let's jump into the actual community service projects that you did. I know we could probably be here all day talking about them, which just goes to show how amazing you are. So take us through some of the community service projects that were meaningful to you.
So I started off volunteering at the garden. It's definitely been something I will remember forever. I've also learned so much from the whole experience. Some other things I volunteered with are me and my dad sat at a booth representing North Hills Community Outreach at the McCandless Fairs. We did the Adopt a Highway trash cleanup. We also did the Salvation Army kettle ringing bells. There are so many, honestly, but those would definitely be some of the most memorable. And
I know for you, working at the garden is at the top of the list, and of course, being able to work with Maddie is wonderful as well. So, Maddie, what was it like working together with Arshia at the garden, and your experiences with that?
Yeah, Arshia, of course, was a wonderful volunteer at the garden. As we were just speaking about before the camera started rolling, the garden's really one of the primary volunteer opportunities for young people at North Hills Community Outreach. So we do get a lot of high school aged volunteers, but Arshia was really a great volunteer to kind of lead the way and be a shining example for a number of young people that we have come through. And I was really happy to have her. Her dad accompanied her several times, which was always really fun because they've got a little bit of their own garden going in their backyard. So I was always excited to give them a little advice, kind of talk shop. And it was a great experience to have somebody who was coming consistently. Many of our volunteers at the garden have been with us for 7 years, 10 years, have been coming at least once a week for a really long time. So I think it's really powerful for young people to have a chance to kind of spend some time with the older people in their community who are really seasoned at giving back in certain ways, who've really committed to certain kinds of projects. And I hope that has stuck with Arshia a little bit, which I think it has.
It has, yeah.
Absolutely. I know this was a super meaningful experience for you, Arshia. What do you take away from the garden? And I know that was a big part of what your community service projects were.
So obviously I learned a lot about actually gardening. It was amazing how much food came out of that one stretch of land. We had like buckets and buckets of fresh produce coming out, and it was just amazing to see how it's actually what inspired us to have our own little garden in the backyard. I also met so many people who inspired me to keep volunteering, people of all ages, and I made some really good friends too.
Absolutely. Earlier on, you mentioned your family's story and just how much that means to you. I know that you, like you mentioned, you were outside with your dad ringing the bell, right? And you were doing all these wonderful things with your family. Just for your family specifically, how have they inspired you to give back? And what has it been like being able to make this a teamwork atmosphere, being able to volunteer with them?
So my parents have always thought first about others. They've always given back in every way they can. I would also say that it's been a really great just bonding experience, spending so much time with them throughout this whole volunteering experience. We're definitely going to continue to volunteer together in the future.
It's fantastic. Maddie, taking a look at the last fiscal year, NHCO has had over 300 youth volunteers, right? This youth movement, I think, is super, super awesome. And it shows that it doesn't matter what age you are or what experience you have, where you go to school, you can give back no matter what. So what has the youth movement, I guess, been like at NHCO? And is it certainly something that you hope will grow in the future?
Yeah, we've had a lot of people get started because they're trying to fulfill a certain number of hours for school or for Boy Scouts or for some kind of club. But luckily for us, many of the folks who start out that way actually end up sticking around and coming back. We have a nice little community of volunteers who go away to college and then come back every summer, and we still see them because they did their Boy Scout projects at the garden or because they fulfilled some kind of community service for school there and just got a lot out of the experience. So I think having young people in the garden is really powerful for them and for us. I hope that they carry with them for the rest of their lives an appreciation for putting in a little bit of labor, a little bit of sweat, a little sweat equity into your community, maybe. So I hope that that sticks with them, and certainly having so many young people bringing exciting new ideas, really helping us kind of rethink the way we're doing things, bringing fun new cultural experiences to some of our staff and volunteers who are a little farther away from their teen years. It's really just something that really inspires me to keep doing the work that I do, is how many young people really get something out of the garden.
And what benefits have you seen? I imagine teamwork, I imagine communication. Are there any sort of life skills that you've seen kids develop, whether they're 14 or not, coming through that?
Yeah, well, the great thing about our garden is that it actually started in support of our food pantries. So North Hills Community Outreach does food pantry distributions at each of our offices. We have one in Millvale, one in Allison Park, and one in Avalon. And the garden is in Bellevue, right by Avalon. And actually, all of the produce we harvest out of the garden goes to our food pantries. It's about 5,000 pounds of food a season. And I think beyond, you know, like you mentioned, some of those kind of teamwork and leadership skills that they get from volunteering at the garden, but those are skills that they would likely get in any kind of volunteer experience. I think being able to kind of connect the dots between food insecurity and access to fresh produce, and then being able to insert yourself in a positive way into that connection. And also, I would hope that some of the tangible hands-on skills involved in gardening would really stick with these kids. Just a matter of being able to identify plants, knowing how to harvest certain things, having the confidence to grow even just a small amount of your own food is something really powerful that I hope that many of our youth volunteers take away. I know Arshia mentioned that it inspired her family to start a little garden, and that's the best I can hope for from our volunteers.
Speaking of connecting the dots, the final dot to connect here, Arshia, is just any advice that you would give to whether someone else is 14, whether they're in high school, who want to follow in your footsteps, who want to participate in community service, maybe even to potentially win an award like you did. What advice would you give them?
I would definitely say to keep trying to find places to volunteer for. At the starting, I couldn't really find many places that would accept someone at my age. So for a while, I felt kind of just like down. I was like, I can't volunteer anywhere because of my age. But then I found North Hills Community Outreach, and it's been an amazing experience. I would say there is always going to be some way you can give back, even if it's not through a whole organization. And the smallest thing really affects your community.
Absolutely wonderful. Maddie, Arshia, again, we appreciate you being here, for sharing these stories. And once again, Arshia, you are an absolute inspiration. Congratulations to you on winning your award once again. To learn more about North Hills Community Outreach, visit their website at nhco.org or call 412-487-6316. Don't go anywhere. Issues on the Point continues right after this.